Life on Fiat standard. Fiat is a Spanish word that means by decree. In simple words, fiat monetary system is a monopoly on money printing by a state and thrives on enforcing the monopoly on its citizens. This video is about how an individual's life will look like living on the fiat monetary standard. So let's dive into it. Number 1. Money debasement. In the fiat monetary system, the state and central banks have the monopoly on printing money at will. They work in collaboration to benefit their interests. Every decision is made under the disguise of helping the citizens, but in reality they're only profiting from the hard labor of every citizen without contributing anything to the society. Whenever an amount of money is printed, for whatever reasons, the money you hold loses its purchasing power. That's money debasement. The purchasing power of the dollar has eroded by 99% since we unofficially came off the gold standard in 1913. That's nothing compared to some other currencies that are losing their purchasing power by almost 100% within a year, like the Venezuelan bolivar, Argentinian peso, Lebanese lira, and Turkish lira. Money debasement is inflation, and it's a hidden tax. Hardworking individuals have to now make more income to keep up with rising prices of goods and services, which also means that they have to pay more income tax now. Basic essential needs like shelter, home, and energy prices soar, but your purchasing power erodes. This is all visible in our society now, where houses are now turning into an investment bank instead of a place to live. Every hardworking individual suffers while the ones with the control on the money printer steal the economic production without producing any goods or services. The governments and central banks together are nothing but rent seekers when it comes to administering monetary policy. So when you are living on the fiat monetary standard, your economic production is being stolen constantly without you even realizing it. Number 2. Inflation tax. Inflation tax is an invisible tax. Let's take an example of a family of 4 individuals that made $60,000 a year 10 years ago, and their essential expenses such as rent, food, and energy was only $40,000 a year. This family at that time fell in the 18% income tax bracket, so they paid about $10,000 in taxes to the money printing press. In the last 10 years, the fiat monetary system has printed enough money to double home prices and double the cost of food and energy as well. So now the same family has to make twice as much to survive. This family would be making $120,000 a year now, which puts them in a higher, almost 25% tax bracket, and now they would be paying almost $30,000 in income taxes. Now this family is paying additional $20,000 in invisible inflation tax compared to 10 years ago. This is one way of looking at it. Ultimately, inflation is nothing but theft and tax. So when you are living on a fiat standard, you're paying more in taxes because you have to make more of fiat money to just survive. Number 3. Incentivizes wars. When we were on gold standard and decided to wage a war, at a certain point in war, we ran out of money. Since we were on a gold standard, it meant we cannot continue the war unless we produced more gold, which is even harder to produce when majority of the population is busy fighting the war. So at that point, war had to end, and that meant wars were a lot shorter. Starting 1913, when Federal Reserve was first formed and gained the ability to print money without backing up with the amount of gold in reserve, wars waged for years. The 2 good examples are World War I and World War II. The fiat monetary system incentivizes wars because you can print money to keep funding the war, and when you defeat the other nation, you now can steal their resources and assets to pay for the war crimes. So living on the fiat monetary standard, you are funding the wars and slaughtering of innocent civilians and children. Number 4. Quality of life declines. Inflation steals economic production. So when the central banks print more money, It forces the businesses to reduce the quality of their products in order to keep competitive prices just to stay in business. This is the ultimate price of inflation. The quality of goods and services such as food, education, water, and health services decline continuously while your purchasing power erodes. I've done a whole video on this titled Inflation is Theft. So living on the Fiat standard, your quality of life is continually declining while you work harder and harder to maintain your purchasing power. Number 5. Rent seekers and no innovation. In the fiat monetary system, there are plenty of rent seekers. Rent seekers are useless entities that are the middleman in a transaction between two parties. There are plenty of government servants and central bankers that are nothing but rent seekers. They're constantly stealing economic production without producing anything of value for the society. A great example is the Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell, who gets paid millions to determine the speed of money printing, which we all now know is devastating for the society. He not only steals by getting paid in millions, but also steals economic production by debasing and printing more money. Under a decentralized monetary system, you don't need central bankers and rent seekers. So living on a fiat standard, you're paying for the rent seekers who are adding nothing to the economy. Number 6. Short-term thinking. Fiat money is constantly getting debased, so the holders of the fiat are incentivized to get rid of it and buy goods and services as fast as they can before they lose their purchasing power. No one wants to save their fiat because it's losing its purchasing power. Holders of the fiat are constantly seeking ways to spend it. This incentivizes short-term thinking and has a radiating negative impact on the society, which manifests itself in all the other areas of life. So living on the fiat standard, you are encouraged and getting conditioned to think short-term. Number 7. Dependence on governments. The holders of the fiat work for the entity that has the monopoly on printing money. So now that your purchasing power is eroding, there is more chance that you will be dependent on the government to take care of you when you're old and fragile. The social security programs in North America are the evidence of individuals' dependence on the governments to take care of them in old age. That used to be the kids in the past, but now the kids are too busy working for the money printing monopoly. So living on the fiat standard, you will end up being more dependent on the government, which will come at the cost of your freedom. Number 8. Poor family values. Before 1971, when we officially came off the gold standard, an average household income was about $10,000 a year. An average home price was $25,000. And that was mostly one parent working. So that meant that the parents spent more time with their kids, which led to strong family values. Now, even with both parents working, it's hard for families to keep up with the cost of living. So now parents have a lot less time to spend with their kids, which leads to kids being dependent on the governments to teach them values at schools. Parents aren't spending enough time with their kids, and it's leading to less traditional values being passed down to the kids. Also, the divorce rates have gone up since we came off the gold standard, leading to a poor family structure for kids. So living on the fiat standard, you will end up passing down poor family values to your family and your kids. Conclusion. The fiat monetary system has only negative effects on the society. It doesn't produce anything of value for the society. On the fiat standard, your economic production is stolen by rent seekers, while your quality of life declines. We are seeing that in real time as we see more crime, corruption, drug addictions, suicides, and wars in our society. The only solution is to exit the fiat monetary system and move on to a sound, decentralized monetary system.